Hey freaks, welcome to the final video of the year. Usually I make a top 10 best, and if I reviewed enough games, top 10 worst video, but instead we're going to lump all 28 games I reviewed into one and rename it to FreQuenczy's least to most favorite reviewed games of 2024. Unlike my top 10s, there aren't any specific rules, and the list I created showcases the games in order that aren't necessarily the objectively worst to best, but that I found to be the least fun to the most enjoyable. Alright, let's get into it. Number 28, Carnival Games. This is probably not a shocker, but seeing how this was the only game I reviewed to get a relatively bad score, it's last place on the list. I feel like this game started out as a tech demo for the Wii and branched out to include a variety of different games. Sadly, it isn't that fun as a whole, mostly due to the clunky and/or unresponsive controls. There are much better party games for the Wii, so skip this and play something else. Number 27, Thumper. I wanted to like this game more than I did. Rhythm games are usually an easy win with me, but unfortunately this one missed. The brutal difficulty decreased the overall fun, and the songs were more focused on rhythm than anything, making none of the music memorable. Not a bad game, but could have been better. Number 26, Ghost Squad. This was a fun review to make. If you aren't aware of the gimmick, I'd go watch it after this. While you can play it solo, having a buddy take down bad guys with you makes it much more fun. There's not much depth overall, but seeing how it's originally an arcade shooter, it's fine for what it is. Number 25, Geometry Wars 3 Dimensions Evolved. Like Thumper, I was hoping to enjoy this game more than I did. Galaxies on the Wii was so much fun, but unfortunately this PS4 title just didn't deliver in the same way. The game gets stale after about an hour of playing, and with not much variety except for the level designs, you're gonna have to really like these types of games to keep going. The different modes including co-op are fun, but I'm not sure I ever see myself coming back to it. Number 24, Astroneer. Talk about a roller coaster of emotions. With the first few hours of gameplay, I hated it because of the terrible controls. Then the next dozen or so I had a great time just exploring and finding resources hidden throughout, then my level of interest dwindled greatly with the last few hours. Yes, this is another game I was hoping to enjoy more than I did, and while it certainly isn't a bad game, it just doesn't appeal to me and my gameplay style. It's too cozy for me, and if it only had more of a survival emphasis, it might be higher up on the list. Heck, if the controls were revamped for console play, that might have boosted it by itself. Number 23, Destroy All Humans. I remember working at GameStop when I was 16 back in 2005 and seeing promotional material for this game. It looked interesting to say the least. You get to be the alien attacking Earth? I don't think I had ever seen a game like that before. Unfortunately, the title is misleading, as instead of destroying all humans, it's more like several hundred across a handful of US areas. Perhaps I'll try the sequel later and the title will be more justified. Number 22, Real Myst Masterpiece Edition. Now don't get me wrong, I highly enjoy the Myst series, but compared to most of the games on this list, I can't put it any higher. Because I already knew how to solve 90% of the puzzles going into it, I didn't get to experience it like a newcomer would, and if that were the case, it might be somewhere else on the list. If you like puzzle games but aren't fond of point-and-click style, this game is for you. The puzzles will test your brain power, and the ambiance fits perfectly for what this game offers. Number 21, Princess Peach Showtime. Even though this game is quite low on the list, don't think that it's a bad game. No, it won't be that challenging for older audiences, but younger players will have a great time trying out all of Peach's different outfits and abilities. It's a super charming game, and an overall good and simple platformer that most will find enjoyable. Number 20, Moving Out Deluxe Edition. I was hoping I was going to like this game as much, or perhaps near to Overcooked. Well, while it is fun as a local co-op party game, Overcooked is simply better in my opinion. Co-op games aren't usually my cup of tea, and it really takes the right type for me to continue to play. While Moving Out isn't my favorite, it did well to keep my interest until the very end. If you liked Overcooked, you might like this game too. Number 19, Shadow of the Colossus. Now, I understand this game is a classic or even a masterpiece for some, and that's fine, but I'm not in that pool. Yes, the game is good, and was considered a technical achievement when it released, but my perspective is one of someone who didn't play it when it first came out, and consequently I just don't have that level of awe for it. I've heard the HD remaster is better, but for PS2 standards, I thought it still did really well. It's such a unique game in that there aren't any enemies except for the bosses themselves, and it's worth playing if you want to experience a different style of adventure game. Number 18, New Pokemon Snap. As I mentioned in my review, I wasn't really interested in the original N64 title, but I'm glad I tried the Switch version. The game was overall more fun than I thought it would be, and thankfully the photo evaluation system did really well for the most part. There's many side objectives to complete if you want to extend your adventure, and figuring out how to complete your photo collection of every Pokemon is interesting and challenging. Number 17, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. I was honestly surprised that I found this game to be less enjoyable than the original Wii U Hyrule Warriors, but it's overall a good game. It was a bit jarring to find out that even though it's technically a prequel to Breath of the Wild, it isn't canon and plays in an alternate universe, if you will. It's still a fun adventure that you can enjoy by yourself, or have a friend co-op with you across Hyrule. Number 16, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2. I have fond memories of playing 2 on the Dreamcast back in the day, and when I heard an HD remaster was coming out, I knew I was going to get it. And not only did I get to enjoy it again, but the title comes bundled with the original, a game that I'd never got to play before. One of the best updates was not actually about skating, but that the soundtrack would play entire songs continuously, unlike the original where it would stop as soon as a level ended. This one hits my nostalgia hard, and it's awesome to have this HD remaster. Number 15, Amplitude on PS4. I was a backer for this game when it was on Kickstarter and got some cool swag in addition to the game. The original Amplitude on PS2 was great fun, and I was hopeful that an HD reboot would be just as good. While I really enjoy this game, it definitely isn't as good as the original, with the soundtrack being its weakest flaw. Most of the songs are unfortunately not that fun to play, and only a third of them actually make me want to come back. Still, it's awesome that this game even exists, and being a part of making it a reality is pretty cool. Number 14, Portal 2. The original Portal was a huge success, albeit a bit lacking. Fortunately, its sequel offers many more hours of puzzling gameplay, all the while exploring the lore of Aperture Laboratories. It also introduced new puzzle mechanics such as the different colored gels with set physical properties. The game is quite humorous as well, and with great music to boot, it's one of the best puzzle games out there. Number 13, Ratchet & Clank. I never got to experience the original games back on the PS2 and 3, but after playing this one, it makes me want to try them out. Apparently, this is a reimagining of the original game back in 2002. I've heard people are quite split on whether or not they like it, since it apparently isn't like the original. That doesn't matter to me, since this is the only Ratchet & Clank game I've played, and I thought it was really good. The worst thing about it was that you couldn't use your jetpack anywhere, but seeing how it was never programmed to do so, I guess it's fine. Overall, it's a really fun shooter platformer. Number 12, Frequency. This might come as a surprise to some of you, but this is not number 1 on the list, nor is it even in the top 10. Don't get me wrong, I love this game, so much so that I named my YouTube alias after it, but as far as which games I found to be more fun, this one sits near the middle. Even though it's the most difficult of the Harmonix trilogy, I overall like it better than PS4 Amplitude due to its better soundtrack. This game will always have a special place in my gaming heart, and I encourage you to try it if you ever get the chance. Number 11, Sonic Frontiers. This was probably the game I had the most skepticism for. Up until I played it, I wasn't the biggest fan of boost-style Sonic games, but it was appealing that this was a new open zone type of game. Well, I'm glad I got it, as it turned out better than I expected. The real cherry on top was you were able to heavily customize the controls, even down to Sonic's momentum when he jumped. I'm still not convinced that it's worth a $60 price tag, but anything $40 and below is a good deal. I'm open to a sequel, but as always, what I really want is a true Sonic Adventure 3. Number 10, Sonic Mania. Talk about nostalgia. I can't count how many hours I played Sonic 3 and Knuckles when I was a kid, and this game brought back those happy memories. Other 2D Sonic game levels are peppered in, and all of them are about 90% accurate to the originals, with a handful of design differences to surprise veteran players. The remastered musical compositions are a great touch, and the game overall is a joy for those who grew up with at least one of the classic Sonic titles. Number 9, Super Mario Wonder. Mario is an elephant? What? That design choice seemed out of left field, but fits pretty well with the overall theme and aesthetic of the game. This 2D platformer felt like a refresh to the franchise, as new power-ups, animations, and even the art style are different enough to separate itself from past Mario games, yet still has that Mario charm we all love. While I still prefer playing by myself, co-op can be fun if you enjoy possibly chaotic gameplay. The online functionality was more fun than I thought it would be, and I would welcome a sequel in a heartbeat. Number 8, Amplitude on PS2. Out of the 3 Harmonix rhythm games I reviewed, PS2 Amplitude is the greatest. It has the best soundtrack, fun local multiplayer modes, and even introduced online competitive gameplay. Compared to Frequency, it also eased up just a bit on the player, allowing for more frame windows to correctly shoot the gems. This will probably never happen, but I would be the first Kickstarter backer if Harmonix ever announced it would port all the songs from Frequency and PS2 Amplitude to PS4 Amplitude as DLC. Rhythm games are so enjoyable for me, and this is probably the best one I've played to date. Number 7, The Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom. You actually get to play as Zelda? Yep, the princess finally gets to be the star of her own show. No. Continuing off of Tears of the Kingdom's creative mechanics, Echoes lets you fight off baddies and solve puzzles using objects and creatures you've previously encountered. I honestly wasn't too sure I would like this game since I'm not a huge fan of DIY. Well, this game isn't really like that, but more of a puzzle experience since not every Echo is valuable in all situations. It's cool that we got a game like this. Now the only other type of Zelda game I really want is a prequel to Majora's Mask. Number 6, Horizon Zero Dawn. While everyone was getting hyped for Breath of the Wild, with good reason, Sony actually released this game a bit before Link woke up. I wasn't sure what to expect when I first started playing. All I knew was it looked like you were somehow taking out giant mechanical beasts with a bow and arrow. Sign me up. The map size was quite large back in 2017, and graphically speaking, it was the best looking game I'd ever played. The fighting mechanics were a bit lackluster, especially with Aloy's spear, but the core focus was using her arsenal of ranged weapons. The story and voice acting are fantastic, and you should definitely play it if you enjoy action RPGs. Number 5, Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor. I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan, but I wasn't sure how I felt about this game since it isn't canon with the books, but was an original story within Middle-earth. I guess I shouldn't have been skeptical in the first place, since the game is amazing. The best mechanic is the Nemesis system, where the orc enemies can level up and gain advantages if they best you in combat. The game world isn't very large by today's standards, but the focus is taking out orcs and completing missions to level up. It was one of the most unique games I'd played at the time, and I'm glad I gave it a shot. Number 4, Super Mario Party Jamboree. I couldn't believe it when this game was announced. We're getting a 3rd Mario Party game on Switch? Oh, I hope Nintendo comes to their senses and puts in more than 5 boards this time. Oh, they did, with 7 no less. And to keep the party going, a handful of new game modes were added in, with the best being Koopathon, a minigame race against 19 other players. If you're trying to decide which Switch Mario Party game to get, this is definitely the best of the bunch. Number 3, Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. They finally listened to me and put one of the best GameCube games on Switch. Now let's keep it going with Soul Calibur 2, but anyway, this is a must-have for anyone who enjoys turn-based games. A good story, memorable characters, and a battle system that is easy to learn but can be challenging nonetheless. Every level is different and unique enough to not become stale, and finding new companions and badges to give you the edge in your mission is a blast. Thousand-Year Door is a true turn-based treasure, and if you've never experienced it, you are missing out. Number 2, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. There's a reason this game is called Deluxe. With all the DLC included, there's a whopping 96 courses to play, with many of them being HD remasters from previous Mario Kart titles. We also have the largest roster by far, and online play where you can race against 11 others is so much fun. The chaos grows even more with the addition of being able to hold 2 items at once, and a rebuild battle mode is much appreciated. This is the best Mario Kart to date, and I'll be honest, I think it's going to be tough to try and top this. Phew! Alright, here we go. Number 1, Fallout 4. I had never played a Fallout game before this, and it's up there on my list of games I wish I hadn't waited so long to play. While not so much a survival game as it is an RPG, unless you're playing on survival mode, there are so many different ways to play this game. I've completed it many times, and there are still skills I've never even unlocked, let alone used. While of course it has a main campaign, you can delay it for a long time as the huge number of side quests will keep you busy in the Commonwealth. I know I still have to wait a while at the time of this video for Fallout 5, but returning to the greater Boston area yet again isn't a problem for me. Well, there you have it, all 28 games I reviewed in 2024. Thank you again to everyone who supported me and my channel, whether you're a longtime viewer or a newcomer. If you'd like to join the Frequency Discord and hang out with the other freaks, the link is in the description below. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in 2025.